You're listening to the Business Lounge podcast here on Kim TV, and today we're doing something completely different. This interview was originally published over on my husband's podcast, Entrepreneur Hour, which is a renowned entrepreneurial show where he hosts guests like Damon John, Barbara Corcoran, Kevin Harrington, and a large array of incredible entrepreneurs and thought leaders, by the way, who are doing amazing things in the world. As part of his female entrepreneurial series, he actually wanted me to sit down on his podcast and just get real and raw with you guys about some of the most intense, incredibly challenging times of our lives. See, for the past 3 years, we've never really talked about this on the show, but Chris was diagnosed with a very severe autoimmune disease that potentially threatened his life. And it was one of the hardest times in both of our lives, navigating, life as entrepreneurs, and then having this incredible health crisis turn everything upside down in our lives, both from a personal standpoint and from a business standpoint. And for me, it was so important to bring you this interview here on the channel as well, just because I feel like we live in this world where, everyone's living their picture perfect, fabulous life on Instagram. And that's the only side that you see. It's all like, the glamour and the fun and all the exciting things about being an entrepreneur. But seldom do we actually see, other leaders and people that we admire talk about challenges and obstacles and real life things that come our way. So I wanted you to, get a little bit of an inside look into our lives, know that we are like everyone else. We have our challenges, our ups and downs. And I especially hope that you get some inspiration and motivation to keep moving forward regardless of what you're facing in your life right now, whether it's a challenge with your own health or your business or just a personal situation. I just want to encourage you to keep moving forward, to know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, that you will get through it. And regardless of how hard things get, it's so important to keep the faith, keep on keeping on, and, really understand what it takes to succeed when failure is just not an option. So I hope that you enjoy it. And without further ado, let's get into the interview.
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Entrepreneur Hour. I have our first three-peat offender on the show, my lovely, amazing, beautiful wife, Kimberly. And we're a bit perplexed, maybe is the right word. There's a lot that's happened since Kim last came on the show. We were sitting here just looking over the last time she was on the show and thinking about just everything that's transpired from that time. And truth be told, if you go back, episode 27 was the last time Kim was on the show. And what has transpired in our lives from that point forward till now has been life-changing. And in ways that were, I don't think we knew at that time that not 4 months from the time we recorded that our lives were going to be turned completely upside down for the next 2 years. Like, our lives would never be the same. And so it's a bit emotional, right? Like, there's a lot of things that we've not shared before on the show, and that's what I'm hoping that Kim can articulate better. And I've told her, like, no shackles, free reign, say whatever it is that you want to say. I'm asking a lot of personal questions in this episode, and it was with good reason, right? Because in this female entrepreneur series, it's not just about X's and O's. It's not just about building businesses and being successful and, sharing that message. It's about really talking about challenges and struggles and perseverance and, like, real world personal stuff. And truth be told, like, with what we went through, what I went through, what Kim went through individually, in addition to in our relationship, it's just not fair. It's a missed opportunity if we don't divulge what we've been through and how much we've had to struggle on many fronts, on every front. And so I wanted to preface it by saying that, because before I jump into my questions for Kim, Kim largely, when I got sick, had to do a lot. And I'm going to let her tell it in her own words. But, there was a lot of things that she had to go through personally. And part of this whole female entrepreneur series, like I was talking about, is illustrating the real struggles that women go through, not just in their business, like I said, but like on that personal front too. So without further ado, we're going to jump into that today. And bear with us because this is going to be a little bit more of a personal thing than it is maybe business and X's and O's. We're going to get to some X's and O's stuff too because Kim has grown her business like crazy since then, like completely pivoted. It's not even the same business hardly anymore. I mean, it is, but it looks very differently. And so we're going to get to that too, but we're going to talk about some personal stuff first. But first of all, lovely, how are you?
I'm good. Am I really the only guest who's been on your show like 3 times?
Yeah.
Wow.
I think Leo's
legit
been
honored.
twice. Aaron Walker's coming back in 2 weeks. He'll be twice. But I think you guys are Leo and Leo are the only repeat offender because Leo and I at first were talking about doing this as a joint thing, and that's the only reason why he came back twice. But you're the only three-peat offender by design.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I actually didn't realize we were talking about this before we started recording.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that I had been on your show twice before. I guess it's been such a long time because the first time was like 4 years ago.
We just started the show. It was episode 9.
It's crazy.
It was in like the first 2 weeks because I was just like, I don't know who I'd interview. I'll just interview Kim, and then.
Well, thank you.
And then
filler spot.
But when you're first starting, like you're just getting your mom, your dad, your brother, your cousin, like anybody that's around you that wants to be on a podcast, you reach out to, whatever. But then we started trending, and we were top 5, and then we were like, oh wow, let's talk to Kim about her actual business. No. We talked about. That's what it was.
The relationships.
Yes.
And entrepreneurship.
Right. Because when we talked the first time, it was about business, but I got a bunch of crazy people, not crazy people, but a crazy amount of people responding saying like, oh, it's so cool to hear like you and your wife talk. And like, we'd like to hear about relationships. So we got all these people requesting like what it's like, whether you are an entrepreneur, you're not, and you're dating an entrepreneur, you're married to an entrepreneur, like how you manage that. So we talked about that episode 27, if you guys want to go back and listen to that. But today, we're going to talk more about what Kim's been up to since then, because that was early 2016, right before the avalanche of chaos.
Dude, that was like almost 3 years ago.
Right?
It's crazy to think back. Like, that feels
lifetime.
like a different lifetime.
Yeah, it was, and it is.
Yeah.
It feels totally different, and I feel like we're totally different people. Probably for the better.
Definitely
I didn't
for the better.
feel like that when we were going through. If you to talk to me 6 months into 2016, it certainly didn't feel like we were better off as people.
Yeah.
And I feel like everything that we were trying to build, this like culmination of what we were trying to build, in a lot of ways, just completely imploded, right? So let's talk though. What's been up in your business? What's been up with you? Well, let's talk about the business first. So, what's been up with you since the last time? So think early, let's say February 2016.
Oh. Yeah.
What's been up? What have you learned? And then through that experience, and we'll get into more of the personal stuff too. But through that experience and those challenges, what have you learned that maybe you would have done a little bit differently if you could go back through and do it again?
Like, how much time do we have? Like, real talk.
No. Unfiltered. Like, we're going to do this Rogan status. If this goes 3 hours, it goes 3 hours.
Okay, cool. I mean, we do live together, so it's not...
All right? You're not going anywhere.
Big deal. All right, so 3 years ago, I was transitioning from consulting into the online space in terms of creating online courses and training, workshops, group coaching, all of that fun jazz that a lot of us in the online space kind of aspire, to do as our businesses naturally evolve and grow. And I feel like, wow, so much has changed, for just the first thing that comes to mind is the fact that, I now have a monthly recurring business that I absolutely love. I have the Business Lounge. It's a whole blown brand in itself. I have a team. We just welcomed our 400th member in the community. Plus we have about 9 additional courses that we sell separately. And we serve about 6,000 students every single month, which is mind-blowing. I know that doesn't sound like a crazy amount of numbers.
That's like a small college. Are you kidding me?
That's true. But, in comparison...
And it's just you. You're the only
educator. It is just me.
You are educating 6,000 people, all right? That is a big deal.
Totally.
Kim will do this, by the way, guys. She will totally downplay.
No, it's not.
Yeah, I'm only training 100,000 people.
No, it's not. It's not because of that. It's because, the people that I admire, they serve 40,000 students. But the difference is we have recurring students, right?
Yeah.
They sell one-off
Yeah.
programs, whereas we mentor and coach students every single day inside our community, which is really fun and exciting. So
And a lot of work.
kind of transitioned, a lot of work, but it's
And
not work.
and a lot of people yelling at you, and a lot of people complaining about.
We'll get
crazy
to that,
stuff.
but
Yeah.
we're talking about the good stuff.
Yeah,
first.
yeah, good stuff.
And then, just transitioning from social media, which was very niched, in my opinion, it was very niche, into talking more about online business and helping really just our students up level their game online as a whole, right? Not just talking about social media marketing and how to grow your business in that regard, but then talking about building a sustainable business online, how to scale it, how to launch it, how to grow it, how to hire people, how to manage the content side of things, how to shoot amazing videos and do podcasts, which we just had you on.
Yeah.
Literally today, we wrapped up your podcasting course
Yeah.
inside of the Business Lounge. So
It's dope.
so much has evolved and grown and changed in my business in that regard. We've also scaled, I think, like 15x since the last time I was on the show, which is really exciting. Probably more. So yeah, it's definitely great. We're well on our way to hitting our first $500,000 in revenue in the next couple of weeks, and then next year we have a big goal to hit our first 7-figure mark, which I think is really exciting. Things are just really changing and growing, especially the last couple of weeks. Things have changed completely, and I know you have a question around that you wanted to talk about, but we'll talk about that too. But that's kind of where we're at. And then in terms of the lessons I learned, I mean, there's so many. I think a couple of weeks ago I posted on my blog about finally hitting that 5-year mark in my business, and what a huge, for me, what a momentous goal that has been, or milestone, because we talk about this a lot, you and I, and we've also talked about this inside of our community, but not really publicly. How the fact that you are an entrepreneur kind of by nature, that's just in your DNA. The minute you kind of figured out whether or not you wanted to have your own business and start that lemonade stand or that mowing business that you started when you're younger, versus do what your friends were doing, which was flipping burgers or babysitting or whatever. You're like, no, this is what I want to do. I never had that moment in my career where I was like, yeah, I was 14 and I wanted to be a business owner. That's not me at all. Entrepreneurship does not come naturally to me. And so knowing that so many businesses, I think it's about 50-60% of businesses fail within the first 5 years. And getting to that point is amazing with a business that's healthy and thriving and a team that I love and respect and admire. It's just been huge, because I never, ever, ever thought that I would be an entrepreneur. Did not think I had what it takes, especially when I compare myself to you. Whereas you have all this charisma and this charm and you're great at communicating. I actually wrote this in a blog recently. You don't know about it, but I didn't think...
It's weird because that's normally what people would have as a diary,
totally.
But for business owners it's I wrote about it on my blog.
I have a blog.
You don't know about it.
Yeah, but that's kind of, I never thought that I would have the skill set to just be successful. And I think that that's one of the biggest lessons that I've learned, is that you have to find what your own strengths are and play your strengths, right? Constantly play your strengths and figure out where your own skill set fits into your journey, and not constantly compare yourself to other people and how other people are doing things, and just try to change who you are because you're trying to fit the mold of what a quote unquote successful entrepreneur is and what that looks like for your business. So, I'm a huge introvert. You're a huge extrovert. You're great with people. I literally shake and tremble when I have to do any kind of networking event. I literally, my palms sweat. You start noticing I break out in this crazy red bloodshot pattern on my neck when people are like, are you okay? It's yeah, it's just my nerves. So I'm totally different than you are in that regard. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons I've learned. Not just you, but so many of my entrepreneurial friends, they're completely different than I am. And so I've just kind of played my strengths and realized that, okay, I might not be the most charismatic person. I might not, have this way with people, and I don't know how to build crazy relationships. You've had so many huge guests on your show, right? You've had Dave and John and Barbara Corcoran, and you've really learned how to leverage those skills. So like that same way, I've just really harnessed what I think is kind of like my superpower, which is educating and education in general, right? Like knowing how to break a very complex principle into small, practical, step-by-step processes and sharing that information with the world. Like I feel like that's my gift. That's my area of genius. That's where I thrive. And then just learning like a maniac and being able to implement that in my business and then teach other people how to do that. That's just literally, I think, the biggest lesson that I've learned. But there's so many others, you know, things like having amazing mentors and always being willing to learn, like never stop learning. You know that I'm a voracious learner. Like I'm constantly learning and
no, to a degree that it's almost like obsessive.
Yeah.
Obsessive learning disorder.
Totally. But I also implement just as much. Like I know how
No, you do.
I'm not a perpetual learner. I'm not a serial learner.
Yeah.
I learn and I implement, and then I do not learn anymore until I am
You learn what you
done
need to know
implementing.
for that specific moment.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I limit myself. Like if I'm in, you know, my membership building scaling mode, that's all I'm going to learn about. I'm not going to learn about Instagram or Twitter or the latest marketing hack or leadership or, you know, accounting. I'm just going to learn about memberships. And when I'm doing funnels or when, you know, I'm transitioning now into growing the team. So I'm really learning about hiring and what that looks like and leadership. And so that is really one of the things that I think has changed the game for me. And I see a lot of entrepreneurs struggle trying to fit into that box that is, quote unquote, the boss girl, right? Or the female entrepreneur. Boss babe. And that's just such a crazy general term. I feel like we all have these incredible gifts and we need to learn to embrace who we are, because people will have opinions and people are going to tell you you're not doing this right, or you should do this differently. You know, from just being exposed to my brand, every day I have someone emailing me, commenting on my YouTube channel, on my Facebook page, sending me DMs, telling me what I'm doing wrong in my business.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is too is that I posted on Facebook and it like went crazy because people were sharing it and commenting. And I think a lot of people didn't realize like how cruel people can be. Not towards just you specifically, and not
everyone,
towards just women, but like the comments that they were making are comments that I would never receive as a male, and I've talked about it multiple times throughout this female entrepreneur series, and I feel like it's totally unfair, and a lot of times also, like they don't make it they're blatantly sexist comments, but
they're misogynistic.
They're misogynistic for sure.
Yeah.
And then sometimes though, like they give you advice on how to run your business, like you don't know what you're doing or something.
Right.
You know?
Or the fact that like I am very true to who I am, and I have to give you, by the way, mad props publicly, because you really encouraged me to have the feminine branding and just be myself. You know, for a long time I was trying to be kind of neutral and not turn anyone off. And you're like, no, like you have to totally embrace who you are. Yeah. And so you'll see pink all over my website. You'll see pink all over my membership site. Like it's super girly. It's super feminine. And we serve, like the thing is people assume that we don't serve guys because of that. Yeah. We have tons of guys in the community. They're amazing entrepreneurs.
Yeah, because if you have men versus boys, right? Like you told me the other day, I was working on one of your worksheets and you're like, you can change the color from pink. I'm like, no, I'm cool with pink. I can roll with pink. You know? Well, but like I think it's like that's the difference between like men and boys, if I can say that. Not to generalize, but you know, like I don't care if the content is good and I know your content is fantastic.
Yeah.
And second to none in my opinion, and I'm biased, but like I don't care about that.
Severely biased.
But I don't care. I don't care about that stuff. Like I'll see past that, and that doesn't necessarily mean if it's female or male or whatever. Like it could be someone that I just don't jive with their branding. Like I don't care about that. I care about your content.
Yeah, and I feel like women we're not like that, and like at least I'm not like that, and my female friends aren't either. Where we won't go into a male like coach or a male mentor and expect their branding to be neutral. Where's the pink, homie?
Where's the flowers?
Right, exactly, or get turned off by it. And so I think a lot of what we have seen in terms of at least my business, like we as women we get judged around every little tiny, like it's literally we are under a microscope, and I hate being judged by my branding and not being judged by the quality of my content. If you have a problem with my content, or if you disagree or you don't like my style, I totally respect that and I appreciate the feedback. I'm not going to be, you know, that perfect match for every single person. I think that no one is supposed to be everybody's cup of tea.
Right.
But at the same time, why is that even a thing? Like,
Yeah.
why do... And you've seen the emails that I get from guys all the time.
It's ridiculous.
I mean, it's intense. Like, legit anger around the fact that my content is a little bit more feminine. And I understand that. Like, if it's not your cup of tea, go learn from another dude. But I hate that we live in the world where that is the focus, right? It's very superficial.
Yeah. Well,
and we'll get into that later. I know that's not the question.
No, but the thing is, I want to make a point of that, because when I posted that, I felt bad because you kind of semi-interpreted. I'm talking about when I posted about what people say to you, right? Mm-hmm. And you kind of felt like I was coming to your defense.
Yes,
and
like
some
you're
people,
fighting my battles.
Right, and some people...
It's like, oh, poor Kim.
Right, and some people...
But tell our listeners what the post was about, because they're not going to get it.
Yeah, I did say that.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
okay.
So the post was essentially, I screen grabbed some stuff that Kim receives. And it wasn't even the bad stuff. Mm-mm. But it was basically some pretty misogynistic and sexist comments that were like, had some profanity, and
they weren't nice.
They weren't nice, right? And they were like, it's definitely had more to do with her being a female than anything else. So I posted it, and I'm like, this is the crap that people don't see. And like, you know, they're trolls and just ignore them. So a lot of people jumped in and they're like, oh, well, you tell her to keep doing her thing and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, guys. The reason I'm doing this is not to champion for my wife. I'm not fighting her battles. Like, what my concern is that we have this growing space. It is the online space, right? And I think it's a phenomenal way for moms to be at home and build a multiple six-figure business and still be a part of their kids' lives.
Totally.
Or, you know, women to... and men too.
Women and men to go launch...
to blog and use their artistic ability and photography and all this amazing things.
Multiple seven-figure brands. Like, doing their passion.
Right, but like I've talked to multiple people throughout this series that are like single mothers, right? And they've built these amazing businesses, and I think it is an amazing opportunity for women that maybe feel like you, that like they don't want to be out maybe in the world like fighting with the men and stuff, and like it's a cool, safe place. And the business launch, there's a lot of people that they really specialize in. They're like, I like doing this because I can empower other women and stuff like that. So there's a lot of women entering the space that maybe would be a little bit nervous about getting into like the business world, right?
Yeah.
And maybe that's not a fair statement. I don't know. No, that's not for me to decide. But it's from what I've seen. It's my perspective, right? Yeah. It's a safe place for women. So my concern is, it's not about you. I know, like, you're good. I literally commented, I'm like, Kim has the thickest skin ever. Like, this stuff bothers me more than it bothers her. Like, for real. Like, your brother and I were literally trying to go, like, find this guy and, like, just literally, do some...
Cyberbully.
Oh, yeah, no. Like, we were gonna rock a charge if we found this guy, for sure.
That is true.
And so... But that wasn't the point. The point is that we have all of these women and people in general, right? Mm-hmm. Not just women, but people in general that are entering into this space. And that is not how they should be indoctrinated.
100%.
That is not how they should be introduced to this space. And there's a lot of people that are too afraid to do this, to do YouTube. And I tell people, like, you need to be YouTube. It's searchable content. Searchable content, like create searchable content. They're not doing it because of fear of these morons. And it's just a matter of, when you see it, flag it, report it. When you see it and you're a fan of somebody, be like, dude, you're an idiot. You know, like, it's just a matter of making it awareness for one, because I didn't know what to do about it. Yeah. You know, now I have awareness that it exists because of you. And I was just trying to build awareness and make sure that whatever we're doing going forward, that we're doing something about it, because that is not how people should be indoctrinated to the space. And
I love that perspective, because this is a real problem and a real conversation that I have inside of our community, the Business Lounge, all the time. Yeah. You know, it's like, I'm so scared of putting my work out there. And what a lot of people don't realize is, for creators to put their work out there, that is an incredible and extremely vulnerable thing to do. Yeah, totally. Right? So you're putting your work out there for the world to criticize, and you know what's going to happen. Yeah. And as, you know, I'm mentoring and coaching a lot of our members inside the Business Lounge, they tell me this all the time. I am terrified of that happening to me, because they don't necessarily have that support system that maybe you and I do as entrepreneurs and as spouses, right? Where they can go to one of their friends or one of their family members and feel like they're understood, and they can vent and kind of process, you know, all the negative comments and feedback that come their way. So I literally was having this conversation with one of our members who's literally been a part of our community for 3 years, and she was telling me how she didn't even get to the point where she was having full on like negative feedback. One person who was influential in her space tweeted something negative about her, And that resulted in her completely changing her business model.
Wow.
Okay. One tweet changed her entire
That's
business
crazy.
model. So that's the kind of impact the negative feedback
Yeah.
can have on an entrepreneur. It can
Yeah.
change the entire course of their business model. And the thing is, like, I never want that to happen to other women. Like, I never, ever, ever, ever want
Yeah.
people to bully and harass, you know, your dreams into the abyss, literally,
Yeah.
to the point where they're non-existent, right?
Mhm.
And I see that happening a lot. So I think that we need to talk about these things more, and I'm glad that you're bringing awareness to them.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
I know I'm not going to win the war myself,
Right.
but I think it's good to get talking about it.
Yeah, and
a lot
it's
of people
good-
were talking about it as a result.
Exactly. Like, ideally, it would be, at least what I have felt in my space is like, you know what? Sure, I get a lot of negative, comments and feedback, but this other person that I love and admire gets so much more,
Yeah.
and they're still doing amazing things
Well-
in the world. And so if one listener can have that takeaway,
Yeah.
it's totally worth talking about,
Well,
right?
that too, and then the other part that people you don't see because people don't do this, but it's more personal. But you save literally, like, and I do too, screen grabs of when people tell you, "You changed my life."
Totally.
Right? Not just my business, not just you helped me make a few more bucks,
Right.
but like I'm a different human being
Yep.
because of this. And
Mhm.
to me, that makes it so whatever you're doing, and I wanted you to speak to this, but whatever you're doing as an audience member, just know that there's those people out there that, like, your mission is to get through the crap and the stupidness to get to the people that you really serve. Because there's someone out there that needs what you have to say, that
Right.
needs that message, that needs your story.
Yeah.
And you have to keep that in mind at all times. That
Totally.
someone out there, maybe they're not telling you, but someone's listening to what you say. Someone right now is listening to what I'm saying, and it's changing their world. I know that. And so I always think about that. That's why I have one person in mind when I talk on my podcast. Because if I think about everybody and like, well, they're gonna think this, that, I think about one person that needs to hear what I have to say.
Yeah.
And that's the only person that I fixate on. The rest of it is
Doesn't
noise,
matter.
and I ignore it because it does not matter.
I totally agree. And I think that, you mentioned earlier how I have thick skin, and I'm human,
Yeah,
things
yeah.
still sting and they hurt.
Of course.
But the reality is there's so many more positive things happening that those little tiny moments when someone just says something nasty about my work or my worth or my looks, it doesn't matter because we're already seeing so many lives transformed.
Yeah.
Now, when you're first getting started,
Right.
that's not
Yeah.
right what you're getting. You're not
Yeah.
getting the abundance of
Yeah.
positive comments and people writing you like handwritten letters and sending you gifts in the mail because you've changed their lives.
Yeah.
You're kind of testing the waters. You're unsure of yourself, and I
Yeah.
feel like that is the time when you really need to, on a daily basis, remind yourself of the mission and the message,
Yeah.
right? And the importance of the mission and the importance of the message.
Yeah.
And realize that your work has worth, that it matters, that it's worth fighting for, that it's worth getting hated on for, and that when people criticize you, that's a good thing. It means that you're actually making waves in the world. It means that you're making a difference. It means that you're rattling someone's cage enough to actually get them to react.
Yeah.
And that is a positive thing, especially in the online space, and I'll tell you why. We're not going to get into politics, but I strongly believe this is one of the reasons why Trump got elected. I mean, the man knows how to have polarizing conversations. I'm not saying that you need to have polarizing conversations on the internet
Yeah.
as part of your mission.
Yeah.
If you go see my brand, I'm fully PG. Like,
Yeah.
that is not me at all. What I'm trying to say is that online and in your business, you should never be vanilla.
Yeah.
Ever. If you're appeasing everyone, if you're appealing to everyone,
Yeah.
you're appealing to no one. Because the same exact things that turn people off about your brand are the same things that your diehard fans for life absolutely
Yeah.
love.
Yeah.
So you have to understand that and realize that first and foremost, your message and your mission come first,
Yeah.
right? Like, you cannot bow down to the mission. Like, it has to be the other way around. And you're not doing this for yourself. You're doing this for other people.
Yeah.
Whether you have an art business and you feel like, oh, well, I'm not changing the world. You are. You're changing someone's world. At some point in time, someone's going to buy your art piece, have it, on the wall, and they're having a horrible day. And that's the only thing that makes them feel like they can move forward.
Yeah.
We've seen this all the time.
Yeah.
I literally serve members that have businesses in completely different niches, from selling, I said selving. What's selving? selling, photography equipment to selling, direct sales sort of business models to having, being fitness consultants, to being real estate agents, to having local coffee shops. I mean, it's a huge variety of people. And regardless of what service, product, program you're offering in the world, you are contributing to society. You're making a difference and you're facilitating someone's life. And that has to be so incredibly important, no matter what type of business you're in.
Yeah. So one of the things that I posed in the original question was, what would you have done differently? Mm-hmm. Right. So we're going to get into some of the specifics as it relates to the journey that both you and I experienced.
Yeah.
But through that growth, as it relates to your business, what would you have done differently? Maybe something you would have navigated and taken a little bit different approach, or anything that like immediately comes to your mind when I ask that.
Yeah. I wish that I would have played bigger.
Mm-hmm.
So I have the same, I don't know if it's because I come from a very different background where my parents are academics and I was taught to work hard and be humble and put your head down. I think that that's a really amazing skill. And that I value humility above a lot of other sort of character traits. But it also kept me really small, right? It kept me playing in this game of like, well, if I ever make it to $30,000 a year, I would have made it, because that meant that I literally could employ myself. And then it was, oh, but if I ever get to like $60,000 a year, like that would be amazing. Like I would have it made in the shade. And then it was like, if I ever get to six figures, for life, I'll be set. Financial freedom, And so it's like, it wasn't until I met you and you kept like pushing me and showed me via your example that I need to be thinking bigger and pushing harder and reaching more people and spreading my message in a bigger way. I never thought like having, $1 million business was possible. And now it's like, I'm not there yet, but it's so close that it's tangible. Like I can feel it, And I never thought it would be also as, I don't want to say simple, because it's not simple, but I never thought that I could run a 7-figure business from the comfort of my own home.
Yeah.
Like I thought that was a pipe dream. Like one of the things that, bloggers and YouTubers and these celebrity entrepreneurs have the luxury of. I never thought that it was so accessible to so many people until I actually like was in the space and I started having conversations with, quilting companies that are literally making $230 million selling literally just quilt supplies on the internet, or having these conversations with real estate agents who are running $1 million deals online without even seeing, right, sight unseen in different countries. It's just crazy. It blows my mind. And I think that it was a process to have my mind opened up to that idea, but I wish that I would have made a more conscious effort to look at what was out there. I kind of just always stayed in my little bubble, in my little world. And it kept me playing small all the time. Until this day, it's still something I fight every single day, is those thoughts of, but you don't deserve it. Or, but, you're not good enough to get to that level. Or, you don't have what it takes. You don't have the infrastructure. Or, also you're going to grow too fast and you're going to lose everything, or you don't have the foundational elements in place to be able to afford that type of growth. So those are all fears that I have to face every single day. But especially in the beginning, I feel like I was just really undermining my own potential. Mm-hmm. And it took a lot of reframing and a lot of intentional mindset work to make those shifts.
Yeah. Well, and I think in a large way, because you've given me a lot of kudos and credit and stuff like that, and I appreciate it. But I also want to highlight that, I'm the type of person that will literally sell my business to death. Mm-hmm. I mean, we will grow so fast that it's just like, I sell it, and then 2 weeks later, I'm like, wait, why did we do this again? Like, how did I think this was possible? So I think there's a healthy balance.
Yes.
And I definitely think that we have the privilege of one another in that regard.
Yeah. And of being opposites.
Yeah, and of being opposites in a lot of ways in that regard too. So, I would say to a lot of people, depending on which end of the spectrum you're on.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely see this, I think, more, not to generalize, because I've done it like 3 times already this episode, but I think men typically are the type that like, they're like, oh yeah, we can just go out and do this and do that. And
Totally.
they like oversimplify like what actually is going to take to deliver on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say get a partner or somebody or accountability buddy or
a mentor
or somebody in your life,
mentor.
whichever side you're on, because, you know, even to a degree, as big as I normally think, even I was thinking small. And I've talked about that a lot.
Yeah.
Like when I met Bill, my business coach, Bill Douglas, amazing, like freaking sent from heaven directly. I mean, he's just incredible. I love you, Bill. And like I realized that he'd run like $100 million plus companies.
Yeah.
And it's just like, man, I'm like multiple 7 figures thinking I'm just crushing it. You know, and like I'm not even close to where he was playing. So like it made me level up, right?
Yeah.
So it's like one of those things where it's tough, I think, to manage that and navigate that, but you know, you just don't realize what's possible out there until you start expanding your mind to those opportunities.
Sure, and I think that, you know, thinking big doesn't mean that you're going to go out and be irresponsible.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I think that that's where you have to be a mature entrepreneur.
Yes.
And realize, like, okay, I'm going to dream huge, not just big. I'm literally going to dream gigantic. But I'm going to realize that there's steps in the journey that I need to take.
Yeah.
That I'm not necessarily going to get there in 90 days.
Yeah.
And that's okay, right? I'm going to put in the work and I'm putting in the hustle for years if it's necessary until I get to that point.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where the balance is.
Well, that too, and I think also when people think big, but they don't have the practical steps to start seeing traction,
sure,
they get discouraged.
Right.
So like they have this like, oh well, this big vision, right? I'm going to be the next Uber. I'm going to be the next Facebook. And then they're like, either A, they don't roll up their sleeves because in their mind this is the thing that they want, so they don't see the practical steps they need to take, and they're not willing to do the work, or they're like, I got to raise money because we're building the next Facebook or whatever. So, but I think that also does it, but then they get discouraged really quickly when they don't see that unfolding. So I think it's like, and then if you think too small, then you just keep yourself small. So it's really a tough thing. I think mentally you have to continue to navigate at all times.
But here's the thing. I am glad you brought that up because I see this every single day inside the business launch. Every day. You need to understand that it requires resources, right?
Yeah.
To get to where you want to
Totally.
be. And so as the entrepreneur, as a CEO, as the boss, you are responsible for getting those resources, for acquiring the necessary resources. So it's not just about thinking big and pumping yourself up in the morning and talking to yourself in the mirror and affirmations and manifestations.
Yeah.
It's about going and finding people who've already been where you want to be, learning from them, working your behind off, right? To get to that level and be able to surround yourself with the best mentors, access the most amazing resources, and really put in the hustle that it takes and the grind that it takes to up level your business and your life consistently.
Yeah.
And so we can get into all these different strategies because that's how my brain works. But I think that it's important from a big picture standpoint to always have that big picture vision, right, match up with the amount of effort you're putting into your business, and having a balance between working smart and hard, I think is also really important. That's kind of why I don't mean to plug my business here, seriously, I really don't, but there's a reason why inside the business lounge, you don't start everyone at the same stage, right? There's 6 stages, I believe, to a successful, online business and really having a sustainable, profitable business. You don't start by just thinking, oh, this is where I want to be, and I want to have this mega corporation, and then, you're working, 2 hours a week on your dream. That doesn't happen, right? It doesn't work. So you have to go through the entire process of validating your idea, understanding that this is like the right market fit, and being smart about how you're going to approach your business. It's about talking to the right people and understanding basic business principles and reading the books and putting in the time to listen to podcasts like this one and going to workshops and conferences and meeting people and opening your mind to great ideas, launching the thing, alone is a whole stage, right? Understanding how you're going to create this amazing product, how you're going to deliver it to your customers, what kind of business model you're going to have, and then hustling your buns off to get your first beta customers, right? Whatever that might be, whether it's you're selling Cutco knives or you're selling an amazing ebook on the internet. You have to get your first customer base and then tweak and experiment and refine your offer. Make sure that you have the right affiliate, partners that can help you spread the word if that's the route that you're taking, or having a solid marketing strategy so that you're building your content and you're building your email list and you're building your audiences, working with influencers, getting in front of other people, speaking engagements, anything you can do to get the word out there. And then having a breakthrough is the next stage, right? Just kind of understanding that through this process, when you get to the breakthrough stage, that's when things actually, in my opinion, get really fun, because now you're actually profitable and you're making money. You're able to invest in a team and hire people and play with big picture strategies like Facebook ads and all this fun stuff, and then scaling that up to wherever you want to be. But understanding that pathway can at least give you a mental picture of what your journey should kind of sort of look like, right? Because everyone's journey is completely different. This is just the benchmark. And then making sure that you're constantly focused on doing the work and thinking big, and doing the work, but thinking big. Yeah. I think that's the balance.
Yeah. Well, you said something about working smart versus working hard. And I think with what we saw back around the same time, the last time you were on the show, is that I was working myself into an early grave.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what I wanted to talk to you about next, was about 4 months after you came on the show last time, we received a pretty nasty health diagnosis, right? So I was, and we knew, so I think this is the part when I tell this story that people don't necessarily understand, is that, or at least in person, right? They don't get it. They think that like I just got sick because of my startup business, what that entailed. That was a catalyst to what was already happening. And you knew I was sick even when you met me, like 6-7 years ago when you met me, like you knew that my situation, like health-wise, like I was not in a good place. And we were masking it, right? We were putting Band-Aids on it. And like, we thought we were treating it, but we really weren't. And so this like life of the startup like really made it a lot worse. But truth be told, we found out through those lab results that we got in May of 2016 that like I was a train wreck health-wise, right? Like I was in...
I mean, I think what the doctor said verbatim was he was really glad that you guys caught it when you did, because had you not, you were looking at colon cancer.
Yeah.
And I think that's the terrifying part.
Yeah. So that said, I know you've told me now kind of what you think, or what was going through your head prior to, leading up to, and after that point with that diagnosis. So like talk to us though in that specific moment, because a few short months after that diagnosis, a lot of things that we're not going to talk about today, because that's a whole other story, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to really do an entire series around that at some point. But we had to make a difficult choice to close the multi-million-dollar startup that I had built from my college apartment. Like it was like health or business. Like, what are you going to choose, right? And so there's a lot of things we're going to talk about. Like people ask, like, why don't you sell the business? Why don't you do this? Why don't you just delegate? And like, we're going to get into that, right? But the bottom line is the factual, like what actually happened, the reality of the situation is that we made a decision as a couple, and as largely, unofficial business partners, right?
Yeah.
To close that business and me to focus on my health. Okay. So first part of my question is at that moment, I know it was a tough moment for you. What was going through your head?
Honestly, at that point, I was just as relieved as I was completely devastated. So I say that because there were so many circumstantial elements that were affecting that diagnosis, or how I felt about the diagnosis. At that point in time, and I don't know how detailed you want to get into the whole story, but we were, I think maybe, so we got your diagnosis early fall or late summer, and we just signed.
No, it was June.
June?
Yeah,
okay,
June.
so
June of 16.
Early summer.
Yeah.
So we had literally 2 months prior signed a lease at a beautiful condo apartment downtown. It was very expensive. We were paying like $2,000 a month to live there. That was the most we'd ever paid in rent ever in life. And we just left, our entire lives in Athens, moved to Atlanta, and I wanted to start transitioning into the online space. And you were like, Kim, this is the time to do it. Business is growing, things are going well. We have secured a huge round of funding. You need to take time off to really work on your first course, which was xoxo, which I think we talked about last time I was on the show. And I want you to really focus on this. Don't worry about the revenue. I got it. Just make sure that you're parting ways with the customers, the clients that you have right now, and just have enough time to just focus on your business. And so I did that. And I hired, I would say, mentors from afar. I just took a bunch of online courses, really started learning more and more about the online space. And then I fired the majority of my clients. I think I went down to maybe working with 1 or 2 clients every single month. So my business had very, very little revenue at that point. And the whole idea was that I was going to be working full-time on the courses, which I did. I'd spent a ton of time working on them, and things were just not taking off. It was like a completely different business model. I was launching, I would get a couple of sales, but then it was crickets. And I was used to the recurring revenue model, right, as a consultant. I had clients on retainer, and that money was coming in every single month, and things were looking up. But now I had completely reduced that to maybe like 15-20% of the revenue that I was used to getting every single month. And knowing that now you are struggling so much, you've been struggling with your health for over a year prior to your diagnosis. I mean, it was ups and downs, like not being able to really eat anything, having to take all kinds of like laxatives, if I can say that. I'm sorry if it's TMI,
I've said it.
Not being able to go to the bathroom, like having constant adrenal fatigue, not being able to, get out of bed if you weren't on multiple like coffee pills, you were drinking coffee a couple times a day, you were like on Red Bull. It was insane. And I felt like the whole world was literally crashing on top of me, because it was like, okay, so now I have to make it happen. Now it's do or die. And I have this business model that I haven't figured out, and I have this product that I've slaved to put out into the world, and it is not working. I have no idea how we're going to make it. Like, I literally was envisioning we're going to go bankrupt. Like, this is it. And so there were all these other things going on, with the government and your company and all these regulations, and nothing was going our way, on top of all the other personal family issues we were having at the moment, which is just like from every direction. It was like Satan was throwing everything he had at us. And I was just as devastated as I was relieved, because for that entire year, I thought, you have some kind of terminal illness. And at any point in time, you're just going to collapse on the floor, and I'm going to have to take you to the emergency room, and they're going to tell us that it's like cancer or some crazy autoimmune disease. And so that moment was terrifying, because I knew everything was riding on my shoulders, and I had to make it happen, and it was do or die. And I either figure this out and have an amazing business, or I need to go get a job, and this is the end of our dreams, and I'm going to be a slave for the rest of my life, working a 9 to 5, and I'm going to be miserable, and I'm going to be exhausted, and I'm not going to know how to take care of you, and it's going to be extremely difficult. Yeah. So having to not just look at that type of, predicament, face my biggest fears, which were leaving what I knew was already working for my business, like entering this crazy, realm of teaching people how to do this stuff online, and not knowing really how to sell it. And then also having the pressure of, okay, now I'm going to be the provider for an unforeseen amount of time.
Yeah.
I have no idea how we're going to pay for your medical bills. I have no idea how I'm going to get you the supplements that you need. I have no idea how we're going to go to the grocery store when we, our savings are really shrinking very fast and we don't have money coming in, and I have no idea what's going to go on with your business, and I have no idea if we're going to get the round of funding and when we're going to get the round of funding. It's like everything that I knew was gone. Literally, like everything that I counted on was gone. My entire career was completely different. What I thought that I knew about, marketing and success online was very different than what I experienced. What I was told was very different too, right? I was told this dream of like, you have to have an online course and all your problems will be fixed in the world and you can scale it up. You don't have to be a service provider for the rest of your life. And that was not as easy as everyone painted it to be. It just wasn't. And so that was really hard because I felt like a failure. I had already felt like a failure for like a good 6 months before your diagnosis.
Yeah.
And it was this like hard truth and a hard reality that I have to make this thing work, and I have to figure things out, and I have to get real about where I'm going with my business, or we're not going to be able to pay rent. We're going to get evicted, and we're going to have to move in with one of our parents. And that's it. Like, it is over. At the same time, I was like, okay, so now that we know what the heck it is, at least we know how to fight it. And we know that you're going to be okay. And there is an end in sight. And there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And I felt so incredibly relieved because it was like, okay, it's going to be really bad and it's going to suck. And I don't know for how long it's going to suck. But at least I know that you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And you're not going to die.
Yeah, and there was no guarantee that, like, it was ever going to get better. Like, I mean, there was a possibility. But I think that's the thing when I tell people that they don't understand is, like, this is a chronic illness.
Yeah.
Like, there's a possibility that it never gets better.
Right.
Like, maybe you maintain or you can stabilize it. But there's definitely a real possibility that, like, this is a lifetime prognosis.
Totally.
That, like, it's something you just have to deal with the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And watching my father have gone through that for so many years,
Yeah.
literally longer than I've been alive, that was terrifying for me.
Yeah.
And then I think on top of that, too, is just when the doctor told me, I think the worst part was not that, you were relieved when we got the diagnosis.
I was totally relieved.
Devastated.
Yes, you were
because
devastated.
it was basically like, kid, don't go die on the hill with your company. Like, do you hear what I'm telling you?
Yeah.
You are going to die if you keep doing what you're doing.
Correct.
Right? And so for me, I was thinking, okay, it's a problem. I'll take a couple months off, and then I'll be back. We'll finish the round of funding, and I'll be back at it, and we'll do what we intended to do.
Yeah, right.
And so when he's telling me years, right, he's like,
yes,
24 months, maybe.
Minimum.
Yeah,
minimum.
I'm devastated.
2 years minimum.
Because that meant to me, like, this is a lot worse than I thought it was.
Yeah.
But then also, conversely, is that I was aware that we had signed this lease. I was aware that I had told you to pivot and focus, when your business was making more as a service provider than you ever had.
Oh, totally.
Like 6 months prior.
I was
until we
like
started
at
firing
the
our
peak
clients.
of my career.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you were close to a 6-figure business as a service provider. You're working yourself to death, but
yes.
you were close to 6-figure. But we would have been okay.
We would have been okay.
And so, as the what I deem to be like being the leader of the family, right? I felt like I had betrayed you. I felt like I had failed you.
Yeah.
And when he said on top of that, not only is it going to take 2 years, but he's like, I don't want any stress. I don't want any work. It's just like, dude, do you want to just take my heart and soul with me? Like, do you want to just strip me of my manhood, right? Mm-hmm. Because that's what it felt like.
Yeah.
It's like now I have to sit and like literally go home and hand you everything to carry and be like, sorry, I can't help. Mm-hmm. And that's like, as a man, like that was just the worst possible feeling. So I was devastated because it's like, not only am I losing my business, not only did I lose my health, but I can't even contribute in the ways that I feel like are responsible for me to contribute. And that is totally like not what you signed up for.
Right.
Which
only made it worse because then you had all the mindset and all the negativity.
Oh, I mean, I was suicidal. I had suicidal thoughts.
Literally.
And I remember that was like the breaking point where we're like, that
was my breaking point for sure.
Yeah. And I was dead. And it wasn't like oh my God, I'm suicidal. It's like, Kim, I'm going to tell you I've been having suicidal thoughts. Like, and it was a real thing. Not like an exaggerated thing. It was a real thing.
Yeah, 100%. Like, you don't play around with that kind of thing. And I feel like, backtracking just a little bit, you get the diagnosis, and we literally can't afford the treatment.
Yeah.
That was devastating.
Yeah.
In that point in time.
We went for a whole year.
Literally.
Before I actually got on the treatment.
Yes.
It was like, we're just changing the diet. But
Yeah.
it was another year.
Right.
We didn't start the treatment until 2017, end of the summer 2017. So it was 14 months before we actually started treating it.
Yeah, because we couldn't afford it.
We couldn't afford it.
I remember.
And there's nothing we could do other than I could just lay there like a vegetable. Like, it's just the worst.
I remember feeling like I'm the worst wife in the whole universe. Like, I can't even call myself an entrepreneur, and I can't even provide for Chris's medical bills. Because if we do that, we can't pay rent. Or if we do that, we might not be able to, like, pay for toilet paper. Like, little things like that. And those are the things that are going through my head every single day. So I buckled down. And I worked 16, 18-hour days. Nights, weekends. If I was awake, I was working.
Yeah.
But at the same time, and looking back, it seems so irresponsible. Why didn't I just go get, like, clients again? You know? Something inside of me knew that if I did that, I would never venture off and, like, actually have the business that I always dreamed of. I knew it. I didn't consider it for a second, Chris.
I don't know why we didn't consider. I mean, I was often like no, but for real, like, no, I don't think
I know.
Like, mentally,
I laugh about it now because I can.
No.
But it wasn't funny
mentally,
back then.
You're not neurologically, when your gut is in that bad a shape, your brain is not working properly. So I was good to nobody, like, including myself, right? But yeah, so okay, so let's talk about that then. So what gave you hope when things look so bad, right? Like, what was it that led you down that path to continue pursuing when you had there was no tangible anything that, like, led you to believe that this was going to work? So what gave you hope to continue down that path despite all of everything that was going on?
Yeah. I think that there was two things, and I thought about this. I almost think about this on a daily basis. I'm not even kidding you. Because remembering where I came from and everything that happened, I never, ever, ever want to be in that situation ever again. From? Like, knowing that we couldn't pay for your medical bills.
Oh, right.
It was in that type of situation financially.
Yeah.
I never, ever want to be in that place again.
Okay.
So I think about that every day.
Sure.
And that definitely motivates and fuels me to continue growing the business. But I think it was two things. Number one, from day one, since I started the business, I knew that I wanted to get into education and training. That was the end goal. And I wanted it so bad. I just wanted it so bad. Like, I'm getting emotional thinking about it, but it was everything. It was like, that's the kind of business that I wanted, because I wanted to teach people. I wanted to empower them. Yeah. I got so much satisfaction and joy from seeing little things that people would implement that would make a big difference in their businesses. I experienced that with your business and helping you scale the moving company and grow it and market it. That was like what ignited my fire, what fueled my soul.
Yeah.
And as much as I loved doing consulting work, it was all-encompassing, all-consuming, all-exhausting. It took away that joy of being able to teach someone and empower someone, because I was constantly doing it for them, right? So I think I just wanted it so bad. Like, I couldn't not think about it. I was obsessed with the idea of being able to create a platform where I could teach and share what I learned full time and do that alone. That made me so happy. That notion, that dream, that idea. I was so connected to my why. It was like any other potential outcome felt like the end of time. Like the Armageddon, the apocalypse, right? Like someone was literally handcuffing me to, I don't know, some cave in the desert in solitude. It was the end of the world for me, professionally.
Yeah.
And even just considering it felt like I didn't have any air. Like I was gonna die. It was weird. Like I never felt that way before. And so the second thing is definitely my faith. Like that's literally the first thing. That's the most important thing. Because even though we were going through the hardest of times and struggling, and there's so many things that we haven't talked about that we probably shouldn't talk about yet.
Like what? I mean, like legality-wise?
Yes,
okay, yeah,
from a
sure,
legal standpoint.
Sure.
That I don't think the listeners can really understand everything that was going on.
Yeah,
there's a lot
of complexities with the company that we are going to talk about 100%. Like there's like open book status,
exactly.
But right now is not the
just
appropriate time. Yeah.
Every day we were getting some sort of bad news.
Yeah.
Some sort of devastating, groundbreaking issue that was like
chop you off at the knees.
Right.
Yeah.
You have 4 hours to figure out this problem.
Yeah.
Or you're probably going to have to file for bankruptcy.
Yeah.
That bad,
Yeah.
right? It wasn't just on the personal side that my business wasn't working or the things weren't going well. It was like nonstop, extreme stress that would induce panic attacks on a daily basis from both of us.
Right.
And then we were trying to keep each other level-headed.
Yeah.
Which was the hardest part because then we also had to like, I felt like I needed to psychologically be there for you and like be your therapist almost because that's what you needed in that time to not lose your mind.
Yeah.
Because your company you're having to make these drastic decisions with your company. At the same time, you're getting this insane health diagnosis. You're struggling to stay awake.
I mean, I'm struggling to get out of bed.
Right, literally. And then you're having suicidal thoughts at the same time. Plus, my business isn't working. Plus, our family is having all kinds of issues that we're having to intervene and figure out. It was non-stop attacks all day, every day.
I pitched 725 investors in 4 months.
Right. Somehow you managed to do that. Somehow I managed to launch a 6-figure business. I have no idea how we did that, honestly, truth be told. But where I was getting to with that is that throughout every single obstacle, every challenge, every minute of the day, I felt like we were living on a 5-minute window.
Yeah.
Okay, we can get through this 5 minutes. And then if we make it through that 5 minutes, we'll get through the next 5 minutes.
That's not an exaggeration.
Like, I'm not... this sounds so ridiculous.
No bullshit. That is not an exaggeration. It was literally every 5 minutes.
Your phone was ringing off the hook.
Yeah.
I have PTSD. Every time your phone rings, I feel like something bad is going to happen.
Yeah.
Even 3 years later. So it's like, we really struggled in that sense. But at the same time, God always provided whatever we needed to overcome the challenge.
Yeah.
It might have not been exactly when we wanted him to.
Yeah, no.
Or
never works that
in
way.
the way that we wanted him to.
Yeah.
But he always provided a solution. Mm-hmm. Always. And in all ways. So I literally remember, and we were just talking about this with our pastor Jordan and his beautiful wife Emily, about how God has his own timing and his own plan for our lives. And I feel like in that moment in time, I had no choice but to surrender my will, surrender my thoughts, surrender my own quote unquote, wisdom, what I thought was right, and just let God lead, because you don't have an option. You're against the wall. All you can do is show up, right? And do the work. Everything else is up to God. When you're in that situation in your life where you don't see an out, and literally it's a daily battle, and you're waking up already stressed out of your mind and you can't sleep because you're so stressed, that's the only thing that kept me going. Is just knowing that God had my back. And being able to open the Word every day, and having to open the Word 2-3 times a day to be able to be reminded of God's promises and take, I literally took comfort in just having that relationship with God, and then tangibly seeing Him in our lives, right?
Mm-hmm. Seeing
how He slowly helped us figure out a way out, and how He slowly healed us. It wasn't in our timing or how we wanted Him to, but He did.
Yeah.
And He provided everything we needed to walk through the fire. And
like
we walked through the
but
fire.
like at the exact right moment too. It wasn't on our time, but it was like, I mean, it was like the very minute that we needed things, it would happen.
At the
like
last minute.
And again, we're going to unpack all the details with that because I'm going to do an entire series on it to really get into the specifics at some point, hopefully soon. But right now, you know, yeah, I mean, you have to take it at face value or take our word for it. Like, it literally was in the nick of time in a lot of cases where it was like the perfect whatever happened right when we needed it.
Yeah. And I feel like in those times, it's just when my faith just was solidified.
Yeah.
I grew that year, those 2 years really, I grew more than I ever have in my entire life. And I would go through the fire again. Yeah. I literally just told Brian this, you know, it's like, Brian, my brother, it's in those moments of pain and anguish and when you're feeling completely miserable and like you feel like there is no way out, that you get to know who you actually are. Right? Because all the bad things and the good things come out. Mm-hmm. Your real character is really on display for the world.
Yeah.
And I feel like I got to know who I was. I grew as an entrepreneur. I grew as a woman. I grew as a wife, as a friend, as a daughter. And more importantly, I grew as a Christian, as a Christ follower, because God was there and I could literally feel his tangible presence. As we were going through the obstacles and as we were going through the challenges and the ups and downs and the crazy, like, bad news left and right.
All right, so let's talk about, because you're talking about from a business perspective, so let's also share a little bit about what it was like from a personal, I mean, maybe it is somewhat the same, you know, but what it was like to personally kind of see, to a degree, like, I quote, and the question I framed it as, lose your husband.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't even a figment of the person that I was, right? Like, I just, like, disintegrated, right? And it's just like, I didn't want to talk to anybody. You didn't want to talk to me. I mean, I don't know that I don't know that at some point I could literally summon I was scraping the bottom of the barrel to just have enough energy to do anything, right? So what was it like for you to be going through that and meanwhile watch from a personal standpoint, watch me struggle as mightily as I was? And then, you know, how were you able to emotionally keep yourself together? Because I remember, like, watching, you know, being, like, laying there and just feeling miserable and, like, watching you just slave away for hours, right? It'd be midnight and, like, your lights, they're still on and you're still, like, doing something, writing a blog, recording a video, whatever.
Sales page,
I mean, ridiculous, right? And you know, so from a personal standpoint, as a married woman, watching your husband go through that, how did you get through the feeling of
it's contagious, guys,
of being alone?
Yeah.
And having the loneliness is what I was trying to say. Having the loneliness that you felt watching me suffer as much as you had to watch.
Yeah. I mean, it was really hard, as you can imagine. I think what kept me sane during those moments and kept me going, first, I feel like I do this a lot with everything in my business and in life too. Whenever I have a question about something or I'm going through something, I just find a resource online or in a book or in a podcast. And I try to find stories of other people who've gone through the same thing and just get some support, get some ideas of how I can get through it. And I think that also my upbringing, I have to just give my parents crazy kudos, because I was raised in a really positive environment in terms of my parents always instilled in my brother and I the I can do anything mentality, right? Like, it doesn't matter how hard it is, you're a warrior and you're gonna fight. And you're going to wake up in the morning and you're going to do the work and it's going to suck and you're going to cry, and that's okay. But you have to get up out of that place. You can't unpack and live there.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if it's a Hispanic mentality where we're faced with challenges and obstacles in our daily lives. And I don't mean to say that about all Hispanics, but have noticed that difference in culture where we have a really fighting spirit.
Yeah.
You know, a spirit of we will overcome.
I mean, we saw that firsthand when we went to Puerto Rico after the hurricane.
Hurricane Maria. You know? Mm-hmm. And so I feel like no matter, and I've talked to this, to my best friend about this. I talked to her a lot about it as well. She lives in the States too, and she's noticed nothing against you guys. I love you so much. But there is that difference in our culture where I feel like society in America is a little bit entitled. And maybe it's just this new generation. Like everything is woe is me. Right? Like excuses for everything. Yeah. Oh, you know, well, my husband is struggling with an autoimmune disease and, you know, I'm struggling to get my business off the ground and we can't make ends meet. And so that's why, you know, I don't have X, or that's why I can't do this or that. That was never a thought in my head ever. You know, it's like anything's possible and this sucks right now. It's heartbreaking. There's days where I literally don't want to get out of bed. I will cry in the closet a couple times a day so you don't see me, which at that point we didn't have a closet. So it was like I'm going to cry in the semi-bathroom.
No, we had moved. We had downsized. We had bought out of our, we had made enough money to buy out of our lease, and we had to borrow money from your parents
to be able to do that.
To buy out of our lease and move into like an 800 square foot, you know, tight place.
Apartment, yeah.
But yeah.
So it's like, that definitely helped a lot, but it wasn't just one thing, right? It was also having your family there to support us. That was huge. We moved closer to your parents, and that was really helpful.
Yeah.
And then having, you know, our parents champion us on and have that type of support. And then also just not having an option. I think that's the biggest motivator. At least for me it was. Like, if I wanted you to get better, if I wanted you to have the best treatment, if I wanted you to work with the best specialists and the best doctors, I needed to make it happen with my business. There was no option. It was do or die, literally. Because who was going to take care of you? No one. The government wasn't going to take care of you. Like, it was unfair to ask our family and friends to pay for your medical bills. No, it was, I had this asset, I had this dream, I had this goal, and I needed to make it happen. Period. End of story. Like, there was no room for excuses. There was no room for mistakes. It was do or die. This wasn't a hobby anymore. It was my business and it was your life. And I needed to figure it out no matter what. And you deserved it. You were an amazing husband. You are an amazing husband. And it was the least I could do was like figure my whole spiel out so that I can afford to not just give you the medical treatment that you needed, the attention that you needed, but also be there for you and take care of you. Because if I had a 9-to-5, who was going to be in the kitchen for 2 hours, like making all of these super complex, not complex, but detailed recipes? Who was going to find all the ingredients and find all the supplements and make sure that you were eating at the right times and make you tea and figure out like that you needed to be on a specific schedule and have the mental clarity, literally, ridiculous, to sit down and analyze what your day needed to look like and make sure that you got enough time outside. Like, all of these things happened. I knew that I could not be there for you unless I was working from home and doing this thing.
Yeah.
So it wasn't an option. And it was extremely hard mentally because I lost you. It was extremely lonely. I have never felt lonelier in my entire life. And we had a lot of relationship issues because of it. Mm-hmm. You know, there was many breaking points. Don't think that I was just this like perfect wife and warrior and I figured it out. Like, no. There were many times where I sat you down and I was like, I don't care how sick you feel. I don't care how miserable you are. I am busting my behind trying to get us out of this mess. And I told you so many times that you needed to take care of your health, and this is why we're here. You're not going to ignore me. You're not going to treat me like crap just because you feel like crap. That is unacceptable and it's not okay. And literally, I will leave this house if you don't like shape up. So many conversations like that where your level of like I don't know how to call this, but just how miserable you actually were. I remember there were so many days where, like, you literally would say, like, something snarky, right? As I was, like, making your food. Or you would just be in the worst mood ever. I think you were in, like, really bad mood for, like, 3 months. When you first started your treatment.
It was
and the
terrible.
worst that it was been. It was horrible. It was like, you didn't want to look at anyone. You weren't taking phone calls from anybody. You didn't want to say 2 words to me. It was like you were angry at the entire... No, not like.
No,
you were angry at the whole world, including me.
Mm-hmm.
Not really, but when you're sick,
no, when
you
feel,
don't...
Yeah, when you feel that bad,
You don't want anyone around, period.
You just want to be left alone in a hole.
So it was like, you know, I'm by myself, trying to figure this whole thing out. And the person that I'm trying to take care of not only is gone, like, you weren't there. Not just you were there physically, but you weren't there emotionally. But at the same time, you're just out of control pissed.
Yeah.
And it came to a point where I was like, you know what? Like, I need to just not take it personally and not let it get to me, because then it's going to affect my work. And it's going to affect what we're trying to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like this crazy thing where you just have to constantly coach yourself. And I also feel like developing that mental strength is critical. And you don't do that when you're in the fire. You do that before, right? And so I know for a fact this isn't going to be the last battle that we have to fight.
Yeah.
And so every single day I try to make it a point to build up my mental strength. And I want people listening to realize this. Life is hard. We struggled with this situation, but we have friends who've struggled with much worse things. Way worse things. And I feel like that's life, right? Whether you're in entrepreneurship or you have a career, that doesn't matter. You're gonna struggle. Like, it's biblical, right? Like the Bible says, in this life you will struggle. Period. And so it's about building that mental toughness when things are going well, so that when things aren't, you have the tools to make it through.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to cave, and it's not going to be pretty. And there were many times when we wanted to give up and say, forget this.
But was there ever a point where you thought, he's not, like, I didn't even know that I was going to bounce back. And, like, I feel like you always knew.
I always knew you were going to get better. Always.
But I don't, maybe it's just because of the frame of mind that I was in at that point. But I think that was what I was a lot of times so frustrated about, is because, like, I was having to embrace the fact that this might be my life from now on.
Oh, I never doubted it. And it would actually annoy me that you would say that.
Yeah.
And then vice versa. It would annoy you that I would be like,
oh
what
my
are
gosh,
you talking
I'm like,
about?
How do you know that? How do you know this?
Because the doctor said. And, like, okay, I don't have this crazy, like, I do have crazy intuition. I think women have crazy intuition in general. I think it's our sixth sense.
No, I would agree with that.
But I'm also, I think it's just because I'm realistic. Like, of both of us, I'm very realistic. Like, I'm the realistic one, you're the visionary, right? And I think that didn't serve you in this specific, because you were envisioning all the bad things. Like, you weren't going to get better, like, this is going to be your life for the rest of your life, you couldn't have kids, like, all these things. For me, it was like, maybe it's just because I have a dietetics background, and I was exposed to a lot of wellness and natural treatments before, like, my entire childhood. My parents have been very, like, alternative medicine people, right? Yeah. Like, they've always done, like, the natural remedy kind of thing. And I'd already seen so many success stories. My background is in nutrition and dietetics. I know how the body works. It's biology. A lot of what you were going through made tons of sense for me from a molecular standpoint, like from a biological standpoint. My mom taught me to think in this way. So to me, it was very black and white. Like, okay, so you heal the gut, the system slowly improves, you heal the hormones, and you get back to normal. Mm-hmm. It'll be fine. There is a cure. This is not leukemia or multiple sclerosis, right? there's a tangible end in sight. Even if it's 5, 10 years, doesn't matter. He will get better because biologically, it makes sense that he will. Unless there's some crazy complication, it was never a thing in my mind where I thought you're going to struggle with this forever.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you also didn't see the progress, but I did.
Yeah, I didn't,
right? So you're so sick that you didn't know what happened 6 weeks ago, the difference between 6 weeks ago and today. Whereas I was seeing improvements every week, slow, small improvements, but I could see them and they were tangible.
Yeah.
So for me, I was like, dude, please wake up. This isn't terminal.
Yeah.
Right? Where you were like, this is the end.
Well, I was approaching it with so much ferocity. And with everything that I had, as strict as I could more self-discipline than I've ever exerted in my life.
But you were approaching it like you do business.
Yeah.
And so was I, right? So you approach business as all-in, hardcore, extreme, like, effort, energy, resources. You throw everything at it, and then some. And you expect it to work very quickly. Like you have these expectations of results, instant gratification. You've always been this way. Whereas I get really excited about the big picture vision, but every day I go to work. Okay, this is totally like an inside joke.
Kim has a jingle that she sings that coincides with her methodology, and she just introduced the world to it. But that's like Kim's little song, is that every day she goes to work.
Like, for me, you know, I'm okay with not having instant gratification because I know that I'm going to chip away at something until I blow it out of the water. And that's the approach I take with my business. Very sustainable, predictable growth. And I'm happy to do it that way. I don't need to be a quadruple millionaire. That doesn't make any sense.
Whatever.
We need to edit it out.
No,
that sounds terrible. Yesterday, I'm okay with having slow, sustainable growth because I know that I'm building the foundation and this foundation is unshakable. And when it's time to scale, I can scale all the way, baby. And it's going to be great. Whereas you're a little bit different. And I think maybe that's like the female perspective, whereas the guys, I don't know. I don't know. I haven't talked to enough female entrepreneurs about this specific topic, so definitely let us know. Like, send us a tweet on Twitter or tag us on Instagram. Let us know what you think about this. But I feel like men have very little patience sometimes, especially in business. And that's the same thing. Like, you're classic impatient person.
Oh, yeah.
And so I have way more patience.
But a lot of times with it, I've been able to willpower to things.
Yes.
Right? And I've been able to like see when I apply myself. When I apply myself, I get results. And this was the one time that with this specific illness, right? So like when you have a bacterial infection, it just lifts and goes away and then you're back to normal. But when you're overcoming a chronic ailment, if you push too hard, if you push hard at all in a lot of cases, you're actually doing a disservice to yourself. You're actually doing something that's counterintuitive in a lot of ways. And so I felt like with that particular instance, it was difficult because I'm not able to apply the same methodology that I normally apply, which is to push, push, push. It was like, no, you have to be patient, which is the what I hate doing the most.
Yeah.
So it just was super challenging.
The level of progress you were making did not equal the level of effort you were putting in.
No,
either.
not at all. Not at all.
But to me, I was always thinking like, Chris, you've been on stimulus since you were 14 years old.
Yeah, I was on ADHD medication.
You have
for like 20 years, and it just burned my system. 15
years of damage. You're not going to reverse it in 2 months. Yeah. That is completely unrealistic. But that never really clicked with you. So I think we're just a little bit different in that regard.
I think the other thing, too, is like, you know, when I started my first business, I was told like, oh, this is silly. This is that. You shouldn't do this. You shouldn't do that. Or, you know, this is impossible. This isn't. I remember I told this story where like I told a guy, I was like, we're going to do this. I said, we're going to go from first year to second year to $320,000 or something like that. Yeah. Or $230,000.
Oh my gosh, I remember.
No, it was $120,000. It wasn't even that big of a deal.
I think it was 3. I think it was 3.
Whatever. Anyways.
It was 10x.
Bottom line is that year, he laughed.
And it wasn't just a guy, it was a banker.
Yeah, the banker laughed at me. And basically I went off and did 1.2 million.
And as you were saying it.
But I started to embrace the fact that I could do those things, right? Yeah. So for me, it's like, okay, it's going to take you 2 years. I'm like, bet. I'll do it 2 months,
3
homie.
months.
Watch me, you know? And so when that wasn't happening and I was getting worse, like my frustration would just, you know, like I had to learn patience. I really did.
Yes.
And so that was.
We're still working on it, but.
Yeah, well, that's a lifetime endeavor for me. But anyway, so, well, I appreciate your perspective on that because I know that was a really challenging thing for you. But let's talk about what happened thereafter, right? We talked about the struggle and like this and that. So all the while, you know, we find ourselves 6 months after we close my business, 6 months later, you've got a almost multiple six-figure business, you know, from nothing, right? Like barely making any. At that point, I think you're making like less than $2,000 a month when maybe I don't know.
I was making less, dude.
Yeah.
I was making. So when I fired all of my clients, I had like maybe $1,000 because it wasn't retainer. It was just whenever they booked, you know, a session, and sometimes they didn't, and I would be like, well, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I remember that June, I made $1,200 total.
Wow.
And I was excited because it was mostly online sales.
Yeah.
So it was like...
Yeah, so fast forward then to, you know, 6 months after, you know, that's 8 months from that point, you're making $1,200. Now you're making like $150,000, $200,000 in a very short time frame.
Yeah.
So I guess, how have you had to evolve and grow as an entrepreneur? Maybe you've already answered this question. To adapt to that kind of growth, to prepare yourself. You talked about, you know, having to think bigger and all those things. How have you had to evolve as you've grown into six figures and now you're flirting with, you know, realistically 2019 being a 7-figure year?
Yeah, which is really exciting. I think that the first and most important thing is just mentors. Having the right people who've already done what you want to do and are doing it successfully guide you and coach you along the way. And so whether it's mentors from afar, my philosophy around mentorship is kind of different than what other people, you know, kind of consider the traditional mentorship route. And I hate to say this again, but I literally just wrote a blog post about this last week. Like, we released it on Thursday.
It's cool. I'll include the link in the show notes.
Yeah, and so this is one of those places where I get questions around this a lot. And so I'm of the belief that putting so much pressure, right? Putting like your entire business's success on one single individual is both naive and a little bit selfish. So I don't think that the majority of leaders and experts know everything about everything, right? So usually
nor
people...
should they, because they would be a master of none.
Exactly. I think that influencers and leaders and people in industries who are really successful are really experts in one or two areas, right? They have one or two areas of genius. And putting so much pressure into one person to explode your business overnight is completely ridiculous because there's so many intangibles, right? It's about, do you have the right product? Are you willing to put in the work? Does this person understand where you're trying to go? And you have the resources to get to that next level. Yeah. So for me, my philosophy around mentorship is that you need to mentor with multiple people in different areas of your business and in your life, right? You go to the experts in different areas. That's what's worked for me. And it's not necessarily what works for other people. I'm just throwing that out there
I think that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, as
that's what I do.
An option and a possibility. So if I'm trying to learn how to run a successful membership, I'm going to go to the best, the most amazing, you know, people who are running incredible memberships and learn from them about that aspect in my business. But if I'm trying to scale my business through Facebook ads, or I'm trying to grow my team, or I'm trying to set better productivity workflows, or I'm trying to take care of my mind, body, and spirit and have balance in my life, if I'm trying to learn how to be a better wife and have, you know, a more intimate and deep relationship with you, Chris, I'm going to go to totally different people, right? Like, I'm going to learn from one person on one area, from another person on another area, and collectively, I'm growing in all different aspects of my business and of my life because I'm being strategic about who I learn from and what area they're going to coach and teach me on.
Yeah.
And so that's the approach that I've taken. And that's yielded amazing results for me and my business. It's kind of how I've evolved and changed as an entrepreneur. One of the things that has always been a big weakness of mine is confidence. And you've seen this since I got started. I never thought I would have a business, and you constantly pushed me. You're like, you should do this as a job. And up until that point in time, I never even thought about that. That wasn't even a thing for me.
Yeah.
And so going out there and finding amazing role models that would inspire me from afar, right?
Yeah.
I'd watch YouTube videos all day long. Not all day long.
That's not too far of a stretch.
Okay, I don't do it while I'm working, though. I'm
in
the shower,
somehow
I'm listening.
You listen to YouTube videos
I'm getting ready.
and write blog posts.
No.
You, like, one ear is like focused on learning, and the other is like focused on a phone conversation, and the brain is focused on writing. I mean, it's ridiculous.
No,
It is your superpower to learn. Like, it's like I have to like literally listen to like the most zen music and like block myself in a room where there's no distractions just to read a book.
I don't recommend that, guys. Like,
Gosh,
that's not what I teach.
No, it's her superpower. Like, don't even try. She's a mutant.
So, you're totally exaggerating, but I appreciate it. I'm
I
taking
am
it as a
completely
compliment.
not exagerating. Do not listen to this alien. She can learn like crazy.
So that's kind of the approach I've taken. And in terms of confidence, I've found other women who are doing amazing things in the world, and they're showing incredible amounts of leadership, and they're showing strength, and they're showing power, because I feel like as females in the online space and in the real business world, we have very few role models.
Yeah.
Very few women are in positions of power and leadership, not just in the business world, but in society as a whole.
Yeah.
And that's something that I never thought about until maybe like the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Right? I keep telling you, like, Chris, like, who's my female role model? I keep mentoring with men, right? And learning from guys.
Yeah.
Like, where are the girls? Like, how can I connect with a woman who can give me her emotional perspective on her journey? Because I feel like there's a lot of masculine and feminine energy in all of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as women entrepreneurs, sometimes we feel like we have to, at least I feel this way, we have to exert so much masculine energy, right? We're go-getters, and we're going to do it, and we're going to hustle, and we're going to grind, and we're going to make it happen. That's a lot of masculine energy. Where does that feminine energy flow from? Where we're like in creative mode, and we're nurturing, right, our businesses and our bodies and our communities and our team members. That side of a woman and that feminine energy is so beautiful and so important, but it's seen as a weakness in business. Oftentimes, at least I feel like it is. Whereas you show compassion and kindness, and I'm not saying that's necessarily a feminine trait, but in business, usually it's very cutthroat, right? It's very like whoever has the most strength wins, or whoever has the most amount of influence and power, whoever's the smartest. Whereas in this whole online business space, I've seen this shifting a little bit, where women are allowed to express themselves more creatively in a way more feminine fashion. And when I'm in the real world, that's often seen as a huge weakness.
Yeah.
Right? Like I find myself having these conversations with women in real life, and they're throwing numbers at me and trying to impress me with all their accolades, right?
Yeah.
It's like, we're doing business in X amount of states, and we just broke X amount of dollars in revenue per year, and we just hired our 60th, team member, and we're closing our first round of funding, and like that. There's nothing wrong with that, but I can tell they're trying to impress me with numbers and with ego, right? And that's how they're trying to bond with me. And it's this facade that I feel like doesn't allow us to connect on a genuine level. And I've seen that pattern in men constantly, where I'm having these conversations with guys, you're often there, and it's this back and forth of, who has the biggest accomplishments and who can outsmart the other one. And like, I feel like that's a natural thing for guys to do, but with women, it's very different.
Yeah.
And men don't realize that it's different. In settings a lot, I also notice this, where guys don't really know how to coach girls. They coach women the exact same way they coach men.
Yeah.
And there's there's a total difference there. There's a total, I think, perspective and worldview that's really important to keep in mind. And I just, for women out there who are doing things in the world, keep doing that. Yeah. Because we have to be the role models of other generations, right? That are coming after us, so that when little girls are coming up and they want to be entrepreneurs and they want to be their own bosses, they have role models in high places they can look to. Yeah. And that never really clicked for me until recently. I never felt like I was out of place. And as I've become more and more successful, and I've been around more and more successful people, it feels a little bit like I'm out of place as a woman. I feel more and more out of place. It's weird, because I see less and less girls and more men. And there's a lot of comments that come up, as you know, that are just kind of strange. So I just hope that as women we can really step up and step into our femininity and embrace it. Yeah. And not be ashamed of it or feel like it's a weakness or let other people make us feel that way. Yeah. So you talked about that. You talked about male mentors. So you actually had a chance recently to go. We went to Seattle and work with one of your mentors, Keith. You were my guest. Yeah, I was there in a supportive capacity for Kim's business, but you know, it's somebody who's been on your radar for a long time. You followed a lot of his advice and guidance, and we got a chance to go work with their team, which was great. It was amazing. So what were some of the biggest takeaways that you would share that you've been able to implement into your business? Just from that whole, like, was it like a mental thing? Because, you know, going to Seattle was like a last minute thing, and working with somebody that is that esteemed. Was that it, of like recognizing like, holy wow, these people are within arm's reach now? Like I didn't realize that. He's probably a top 3 digital marketer in the world, arguably, maybe not even arguably. So was that it? Was it like, holy wow, maybe this is closer. Like some people think like, how do I get a mentor? And like, you've earned the right to be in a room with Keith, in my view. You've put it this way. Yeah, I hate the word deserve, but you've earned the right to be there, right? So was that it, or was it a technical thing, or was it realizing how big of an opportunity this market presented, or kind of what was that for you? In terms of takeaways? Yeah. So first of all, I want to make the disclaimer, when I talk about mentors not knowing necessarily, you know, masculine mentors knowing how to coach a girl, I know that there's tons of exceptions. I'm not talking about Keith. Seattle was the exception. They were fantastic. Totally. They were 100%. Amazing. And that's why we went to Seattle. And that's why we went. That's why we went last minute. We're like, whatever we have to do, we have to get to Seattle, because we 100%. Knew. Yeah, no, they were amazing. Yeah, 100%. I think the biggest takeaway in this regard was just having a world of opportunity presented to us, and just knowing. I think for a long time, I knew that I had the potential to scale my business. I've been scaling my business, but not to the extent that I realized I was playing small, right? I wasn't thinking big enough. Yeah. That was my biggest takeaway. And they basically told you that. They 100%. And the thing that changed my entire mindset was like, wow, this isn't just possible. It is so real and could happen for me so quickly. I just don't see it yet. Yeah. And so being able to just have that mindset and that mental shift meant that we doubled our business in 30 days. Literally. Yeah. That's insane. Which you know, we're not talking about from, you know, $100 to $200, right? Like exactly. We're talking about a multiple 6-figure business. Yeah. And doubling means you're flirting with 7 figures. Right. Which is like, exciting. That's amazing. That's tremendous. In a matter of a month and a half, that's incredible. Yeah. Like but I just want to make sure that was clear. It's not like, hey, 2 to 4, you know, like it's monumental growth. Yeah. And you know, that was a huge takeaway. And then the other thing that I think was equally as important that I already knew, but it was just solidified even more, is you're one small tweak away. Totally. Always. Right? You're one product away, one offer away, one funnel away, one pitch away, one conversation, one person, one team member. You're always like one small thing away. And there were so many things that we got out of that conversation that we needed to tweak and change.
Yeah.
You know, but the biggest thing that really made me excited was we made one change
Literally
to our business.
And that is, yeah.
And that doubled our business.
And that's
so
one
now,
of like
30, 40
minimum.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
And so we're just scraping the surface of what's possible.
Yeah.
But it's also backed up by years and years of hard as heck work.
Yeah.
Perfecting our products, perfecting our offers, perfecting our message, getting to know our ideal client, hustling like crazy to get the message. If I hadn't done that, there is no way this would have been possible.
No. You wouldn't be that close. It wouldn't be one tweak away. It'd be like, do the work, and then you're one tweak.
So there's no magic pill and no magic formula.
No.
You just have to do the work.
Now, but there's a reason I want to ask you this question.
Sure.
Because I see a lot of people that, you know, they go to Starbucks every day, right?
Mm-hmm.
For their monthly budget at Starbucks is $300 to $400.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to investing in their future, when it comes to investing in their business, it's like, oh, well, that's too expensive.
Oh, that's too expensive.
It's too expensive, right?
I can't afford this right now.
Yeah, I can't afford this right now. It's like...
when I have time.
Right. And so I understand there's a real fear around spending that kind of money, right? And like, am I going to get the results? Am I going to do this? Am I going to do that? Like, that one thing that we learned and took away literally is going to double, triple your business, right? Mm-hmm. And so I just want to reiterate that people see like real evidence of how important it is to take that time and take the investment and learn, because to a large degree, I'm not saying this opportunity was always available to us, right? That we could have gone out and made those investments. But when I think about it, you talk about resources and mentors, right? In terms of both, sometimes it's just a matter of making sure that you're doing those and not doing it when, like, okay, when I can afford it. Sometimes it's a matter of like, how can I afford it? Because I need it right now. And I think about that. And we went to Seattle. I'm like, damn it, we've been making life so much harder than it has to be. Mm-hmm. Because if we could have invested in this 2 years ago, imagine where we would be.
Yep.
Right. And so that's the point that I wanted to really drive home to people, because like, sometimes you are making it harder than it has to be. And sometimes it is a matter of, now we made an investment in going to Seattle. We made an investment.
A huge investment.
Right? Huge investment to be in Seattle. But to see it paid, and you want to make affordable steps, right? You don't want to go out and just pull out the credit card and just start making down payments on house type expenses.
Don't be irresponsible.
Right.
Okay? That is not what we are saying. We're not saying that you have to go out and leverage yourself to the point where you can't afford to feed your children.
Right.
That is not responsible.
No. That is completely irresponsible.
What we're talking about is when you have a business, you have an asset. So, leverage the dang asset. Figure out how many clients do you need to actually close to justify that kind of expense. Yeah. How many products do you need to sell this month so that you can afford to purchase that resource that's going to allow you to get yourself to the next level. I'm not talking about borrowing from family and friends. I'm not talking about going out and spending your life savings. I'm not talking about taking away from your...
Or getting an investor.
No.
I had somebody pitch me for $6,000.
Oh my gosh.
They wanted me to invest in their business so they could go like buy some training program.
Yes. Like, you don't need an investor.
First of all, oh my gosh.
Let's not get on a tangent, but... leverage your business. Go out and hustle. Like, make it happen. Get 2 extra clients. Figure out how you can close a deal, with manufacturer, and you can sell more products. Like, figure it out. There is always an opportunity. That is my problem, is people don't think about how they can leverage the assets that they have so that they can continue growing their businesses. And it's so much easier to make an excuse. So much easier to make an excuse and say, oh, that's too expensive, or I could never afford that right now, or, maybe sometime later when I have a ton of money. Hello, you're not going to be able to get to that level unless you actually make those clear steps and invest in yourself at a higher level. Not going to happen. Yep. I have invested so much money in training and mentors and coaching. Yep. It's insane. Like, literally, we could have put a down payment on a house. Easily. Maybe 2 down payments on houses. Probably 3. Just to, learn and get to the next level. That doesn't happen magically.
No.
It just doesn't. And people don't make that, switch. They don't understand that if they want to play at a high level, they need to invest in their business. Period. Yep. It's not going to happen any other way. unless somehow you like hit the lottery and someone wants to mentor you for free, which is very rare because
No.
people who are actually in the game, they're busy running their businesses. They're doing big things, and guess what? They value their time.
Like crazy.
And you should too, right? That they're setting an example for how you actually run a successful, profitable business. So expecting someone to coach you for free is not just incredibly disrespectful to their time, their energy, and the years of mistakes and money and time and energy they've had to invest to acquire that knowledge. It's also a disservice to your own business. You know why? Because you have zero skin in the game, which means you don't show up, you don't take their advice seriously, and you don't implement. That's what happens.
No, to a large degree, you buy your mentors.
100%.
That like, and anybody that comes to you like, I need a mentor. It's like, okay, well, then make the investment in one.
Make the investment.
Right? Go buy their programs. Go support their stuff. Go to their intensives.
Start with a book.
Yeah.
You don't even have to go in.
Exactly.
These people put 10 years, decades of their life's work into books, and no one reads.
Yep.
Like, that just blows my mind. The book is $10, $20. You could go to a bookstore and download all this knowledge, decades of mistakes and trials and errors.
That's why I just launched an entire community around book readers.
That's why you launched the freaking VIP room.
Yep.
Because those are the things that entrepreneurs are not doing.
Yes.
That they don't understand the value of.
No.
The people who are playing at high levels, all they do is think and read.
That's it.
Period.
That's it.
They think and read and they get coached.
Yep.
That's the only way to get to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
You were telling me how Tim Ferriss sometimes spends weeks just thinking about what is the one area.
Not even that. He'll take a quarter.
Right. One area of his business.
Yeah.
That's going to. What's the one area of his business?
Yeah.
He can make insane amounts of change by just elaborating on one aspect or focusing on one aspect. That is how billionaires think.
It is.
Okay? And that is the big shift that so many entrepreneurs need to make.
They have taken the time paradox and just made it their own, right?
100%.
It's like they don't operate the same way that we operate.
No.
Like they don't think about the same 24 hours and like work. How can I fit all these stuff in this hour? It's like, I don't care about this. I care about what is the one thing that I can do that is going to... They operate in their own confines. Like it's ridiculous.
And no one can disturb it.
No.
That's why their time is so valuable, because it's the one resource that they can't get more of.
Yeah.
So, when you're thinking about investing in yourself and getting a mentor, please go out there and invest financially.
Yeah.
If you can't afford to work with that person one-on-one, that's okay. Buy their books, listen to their podcasts, literally consume every single piece of content that they put out. Follow them on social media. Make sure you're connecting with them. Buy their courses. Buy their courses. I can't tell you how many times I've made an incredible connection with a mentor because first I invested in their courses and in their books. Because here's the thing. Mentors don't want you to... What they want to do is they want to take you to the next level, okay? They don't want to play with beginners.
No.
Why?
No.
Because beginners haven't implemented the stuff that they're sharing for free or at a low cost. That happens to me all the time. I don't work with any type of client. I don't mentor anyone one-on-one until they've gone through my programs. Why? Because it's a disservice to them.
There's too much of a gap.
It's too much of a gap. I can't teach you in 4 sessions what I've put into my courses. I just can't. So you need to be at a level where you're already implementing and consuming these strategies and these resources so that when the opportunity presents itself to work with someone one-on-one, A, you're financially ready to make the investment, and B, you have the knowledge, okay? They're not going to be speaking a different language when they talk to you because you're already aware of the steps and the strategies that need to come before that time, that point in time. So that's just my advice around mentorship.
Cool. All right, so last question, then we got to roll because this is now officially our longest episode ever.
You said...
I did. I said if it takes 3 hours, it takes 3 hours. This is an important message.
What did you say? It was going to be a Rogan style podcast.
Rogan. We're going Rogan. we went Rogan.
We went
Rogue in. That was so cheesy.
Totally cheese.
All right, so what does the future look like then, as you see it for your future and your business and, now that you've reached this plateau? I mean, it's probably one of those things where it's futile to try to even envision, what the next 2 years look like. But I mean, I guess like, where would you like to see yourself? If you come back and again another 2 years and 9 months later, like you did this time, or however long it's been, where do you want to be, right? Like, what would you like to be talking to our audience about in another 2 years?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And honestly, I have no idea where I'm going to be in 2 years.
I don't know where I'm going to be in 2 weeks.
Like, I don't know. Exactly. Like, 2 months ago, I had no idea I was going to be here. So it's just, it changes all the time. I think it's more about what I want to be doing and the kind of impact that I want to be making.
Yeah.
So in 2 years, I'd love to have the ability of really coaching a very small group of entrepreneurs and showing them and teaching them, how to scale their businesses successfully online. And I feel like to a certain extent, a lot of entrepreneurs, I know this is the case for you. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm just a little bit different. You love to scale to the masses, right? Like, you want a global brand. And I think that's amazing. I think there's a part of my business that will scale to a very large amount of people and entrepreneurs. But where I get the most amount of satisfaction is seeing and working with people closely, right? In a small group, in a small setting, in a more intimate way, and getting to know them. We joke around about this all the time, but our members inside the Business Lounge are our family.
Yeah.
Like, we know them by first name. We know what's going on. We know their kids. We grieve when they're grieving, and we celebrate when they're celebrating. I know that that's something really special that we've had for the past 2 years, and it won't always be that way because we want to scale the business. But I'm really excited about launching this kind of new iteration of the Business Lounge and having 2 tiers that will eventually lead into accelerator programs, and having the ability to not just coach and mentor our members, but potentially invest in their businesses as well. And having those kind of partnerships makes me feel really excited. Yeah. So that's one of the big things. We also want to give back in bigger ways. Yeah. So I've always had a dream of creating an amazing scholarship fund for students in third world countries that are trying to better themselves through higher education. I'm a huge proponent of education in all shapes, sizes, and forms, and I would love to be able to contribute to that program in bigger ways, and have different kinds of charities and build schools for people, and be able to contribute to disaster relief projects. So there's a big part of what we do that is human focused and people focused and community driven, and we want to be able to make a bigger impact in the world as a whole, not just in our local community but around the world.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for taking so much time out of your busy day to join me for a third time. But no, on a serious note though, I do, I wanted to publicly thank you for, I say this all the time, or at least I told you at the time, that there's a million people that would have just totally bailed and been like, this guy, whatever. And you were supportive throughout the whole thing. And you never stopped believing in me, even when I stopped believing in myself. Right. Aww. And there was a point through that process where I definitely stopped believing in me and my ability to recover and my ability to, be successful, because, and we're going to talk about this more, like I said, with this episode, but, there was a point where I questioned, am I even good at this thing called entrepreneurship? Mm-hmm. I felt like a failure. I felt like I failed. Despite everything that we did, despite all of the, the tremendous growth that we had, there was a real part of me that had to be faced with the reality of man, look what I put, not just me, but my family in, in this situation. And, when I am all grown up, quote unquote, and have kids and stuff like that, am I going to do this again? And your unwavering belief in me and my ability or whatever, whatever it is that you see in me, I feel like it's what gives me fuel. It's what gives me energy. It's what motivates me. It's what drives me. And it's why I didn't give up, because I felt like I owed it. I owed it to you. I owed it to my family. I owed it to my father, to beat this nasty illness that he suffered with for so long. But having all of you, and most notably you, because you were right there through all of it. And, when everybody, was the world was collapsing around me, all I had was you. And so you're my favorite female entrepreneur on the planet. And I felt like it was warranted for me to just thank you for everything you've done and everything you've been to me, and being my soulmate, my best friend, my business partner, and everything. So I hate that this series is going to continue beyond this, because I feel like this is the perfect way to end this female entrepreneur series. But it is what it is. Here we are, and thank you. And I'm excited about continuing to do life with you. So I love you and thank you.
Well, thanks for making me cry on your freaking
I
podcast.
got her.
That's not okay. But you're so welcome, babe. I think that you're absolutely worth it. All the challenges and struggles, I've told you many times, I would go through it 1,000 times if it meant that I got to share life with you. So if that says anything about how I feel, I hope that you at least know that it's not just not your fault at all that this happened. Like, this happens to so many people. Like, you couldn't have predicted that you were just going to get sick.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I want our listeners to also know that even though trials will come around and it'll be really hard and your world will be rocked, that's okay. It's life. And you will be stronger and way wiser for it. So embrace the challenge, embrace the fire, embrace the storm, because it only means that better things are to come. Better, bigger, more amazing things than you could have ever dreamed of. So if you continue to have a positive mindset and you challenge yourself to look at adversity through the lens of possibility, it'll radically change and transform your life forever.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for having me. It was really, really fun. This was very hard to talk about, but I'm glad that we did, because these are the conversations that I wish I had access to when we were going through what we were going through. And if this can inspire even just one person to not give up and not give in and keep fighting the good fight, it is so worth it.
Yeah. All right, guys, we're going to end with that because I feel like there's no better way to end it, and we will see you in the next one.
So there you have it. I hope that you enjoyed this interview with Chris and I, as we sat down and kind of did something totally different than what we usually do. Don't forget to come over to Chris's YouTube channel and subscribe. He's going to come out with tons of awesome more videos, plus you can catch other episodes there too. And last but not least, go check out the Entrepreneur Hour podcast. I'm going to be linking to it in the description box below, where he has over 100 amazing interviews with some of the world's top entrepreneurs. And hey, would you do me a favor and share this episode with a friend or a colleague that is maybe going through something challenging? There are so many entrepreneurs out in the world who are going through the ups and downs of life and entrepreneurship and balancing both. I'd love for them to hear this story and find some inspiration and encouragement to keep pushing forward. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe, give it a big thumbs up, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye for now.